Hey guys, so this is probably one of my single most requested videos that I have ever had. I have been asked many times how to do offerings, how to do sacrifices and sacrifice fires. Because if you're familiar with me, if you've met me, then you know that this is something that I'm very adamant about, that I do every month, sometimes more than once a month, and that is sacrificing. So what is it? Well, unfortunately for some of you, it's probably not going to be burning our enemies at the stake. Sorry, we can't do that anymore. But what it is every month I go and get some things and I build a fire and I burn them as a sacrificial offering. And I do this for paying homage to the deities. So let's get into that a little bit. It has been a long practice that fire was a gift from the gods for us, or stolen for us in some cases, and that we went into agreements in order to keep that, and part of that was to honor them. Now, keep that in mind because it's going to be very important later, the whole fire thing. Our offerings and our homage to the gods is what gives them their power. That's part of the agreement that we entered into with them, especially if, like me, you've entered into a contract with one of them. So, I'm going to have a video in this on the step-by-step process that I go through. Now, let's hit some notes about this. So, the point of the offering is for you to make an effort. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be the most bougie of items. What is important is the effort going into it. Think of it like that whole, even if you can't buy a fancy gift, you can do a homemade gift and it's more meaningful because you put more work into it. It's kind of like that. So what we're looking for here isn't the expense of it or the fanciness of it. It's the effort. Because things like that are more noticed and well received. So keep that in mind when you go into the video of like how I do this. One thing that is not included in the video is I also tend to have a alcoholic beverage offering that I'll take a sip of and I'll offer a sip to the fire, and this goes on throughout this whole process. I don't want to get clocked by YouTube standards, so we are not going to be showing that part. But one thing that you'll also notice when I get into the how-to video is I have a menagerie of things that I offer. I tend to try and offer like herbs because of the aromatic aspects of it and their purposes and whatnot. I do grow my own herb garden that I harvest from. So much more convenient. I tend to have a little bit for everything. Like I'll have a little bit of fruit. I'll have a little bit of like a pastry. I'll have a little bit of meat and things of that nature. Now, something to note about the offerings. Another note. That's going to be our keyword for this video is note. I try not to make it specific for a deity unless I need to. The reason why is because I like to compare it to, it's like having a dinner party and having this big buffet of things, and then you have your guests show up and you tell one guest, oh, you can't have anything because this is for this guest who may or may not even show up. So I like to think of it as an open invitation for whatever power that be needs that offering, wants that attention, needs to send a message or something of that nature. So keep that in mind when you go to do yours. Try to keep it a little more open and welcoming, because sometimes the message that you need does not necessarily come from who you think it's going to. So it's important to keep that open invitation. Now, as far as the offerings go, like I said, it's good to have a variety because then that's stuff that appeals to everybody. because there are certain deities that you're not going to offer something to that you would another. Like in this video in particular, I put a liver in. Now I'm pretty sure that let's just spitball us a deity, let's say Demeter, who is a harvest goddess, she's not going to appreciate that as much as, like, say, a war god. So just think about these things, and even if you don't know, look it up. See what appeals to who. Typically, when I'm picking out my items for a sacrifice, I go based off of feeling. What feels right. Not what I think would be cool, but what feels like what I should get. So, with that being said, you get a little bit of background on that. Now, one thing that I do try to include in all of my sacrifices is bones. And the reason why is because while I do not stick to one pantheon of pagan deities, I do tend to flirt more with the Hellenic side of things. So, in the old stories, when Prometheus stole the fire for us, and we had to enter into a pact, or we struck a bargain, or a bet, something of that nature, with the gods of what they would choose as far as offerings in order for us to keep this. And in this gamble, I'm not going to go into the whole story, but basically we were to sacrifice the bones and the offal. If you do not know what offal is, that is the guts and stomach and da-da-da-da-da. Offal is a bit of an old school vocabulary, so I don't expect a lot of people to know that. But anyway, that is why I always offer bones, was because that was part of the original agreement, is that we would take the meat from the offering and they would get the bones from the offering. This also plays into a little bit of why I'm very particular about not using bone items. That's one of the reasons. There's a lot of reasons. It's a lot to unpack. I'm not going to get into that because that's my personal thing. So, anyway, that's a bit of why we do this, how we do this, how you pick things out. But I do want you to really keep that in mind, though, that it's not about how much or how fancy. Just making that effort. And making that effort makes all the difference, because let's face it, fact of the matter is some of us are some real lazy pagans. We're real lazy. Like, I don't know why we're like that. And I mean, I find the sacrifices is a good time, like if you need help with something and you want the gods to help you. And I'm not saying like, help me win the lotto or help me find my true love or anything like that. What we're looking for is just a nudge. Just a nudge. Because a good example is, I think this is the path I'm supposed to be on, but I'm hitting all these obstacles. Can I get a little nudge? Or at least a sign that I'm going in the right direction. You know, not asking for anything big. And you don't have to ask for anything at all. This is just a good time to do so. And I mean, like, you don't have to pray for them at all. You don't have to ask for anything at all. But the opportunity is there. So humility goes a long way. But don't be afraid to ask for help either. So I'm going to go ahead and jump this into the how-to portion of it. And the next time you'll see me, we'll be doing our outro. Alright, so here we go. We've got our layout for our offerings. This can be anything you want it to be or whatever god you want to go for. We have our fire in which we burn our offerings. And as you can see, I'm throwing in our herbs to start things off. We add our bones, as explained why. Now, I typically use beef bones, but really you can use any. Beef bones just tend to be cheaper. And these are also beef soup bones if you want to look in the freezer section. We have a very pretty plum, because I like to include a fruit item whenever I do offerings. We have some sweet cream butter and some very fancy cheese, a little bit of bread. It didn't want to come out with the tongs, so I had to dump it. We got our honey. Be careful with that because the strings get very hot. Have a little bit of liver or ribeye, You don't always have to use liver. It was just something that occurred to me. Coffee and chocolate for the little sweet at the end of it. Now, I did crop this most of the way through, so all these things didn't have to go in all at once. I try to space them out. It's just a lot more cohesive. Now that we have that out of the way, and I hope that helped y'all out. Now, if you have come here, ended up on this page from TikTok, you are probably aware that I did a multi-part series on a quick version of the sacrifice fire. And I actually got that out a couple days in advance because I had filmed a really fast how-to for a Facebook group one night that I did it. And I mean, like, I think I mentioned that it was a new moon, so that tells you it's been a minute. Pretty sure that was like back in spring. But anyway, if you're here from TikTok, this is the long version of the video. I hope it fleshed out some things for you. And if you're not here from TikTok, I hope this satisfied y'all's curiosity on the sacrifice thing. Now, just touching on it a little bit, I personally like to do them at the full moons because that is a significant time for me. You don't have to. If you are a new moon kind of dude, that's fine. We also tend to do them around the equinoxes and solstices, significant times where it's going to be a really peak power time, if you were wondering when to do these. And I'm sorry if this video was all over the place. I don't know what, my ADD is really rampant today, and that happens from time to time. It just likes to rear itself whenever I'm filming for some reason. But I hope this answered all your questions. I hope this motivates you to be the best pagan that you can be. And as always, if you like this, hit that like. If you want to subscribe, please do. I love it. Feel free to ask questions. Leave comments. Make suggestions. I ate this stuff up. I absolutely read all of them. And on TikTok, that takes me a while. That takes me a long time. So, as always, y'all have a great night. I will see you next Monday. Feel free to drop those suggestions. I will absolutely get to them.